Well, thanks very much for inviting us here, and thanks very much for everyone coming. I'm Richard, and over here we've got Jenni. We both work in the School of Environmental Sciences here at UEA, and our particular interest is in volcanoes and volcanic eruptions. And there's a number of others of us in the school who work on volcanic eruptions in one way or another. So we're going to tell you a little bit about volcanoes and what they do and what we get up to and in the School of Environmental Sciences. And the first thing to sort of ponder is just how very, very, very strange it is that we get volcanoes, that we get magmas coming out at the Earth's surface. It's not what you expect in normal life. You don't think you're going to go off to school one morning and find there's cracks open up in the ground and that liquid rock is going to come out. But this happens in some parts of the world. Nowhere close to Norwich, I'm pleased to tell you, but maybe in Iceland or the south of Italy, these sort of places. It's very peculiar that we get this, where liquid rock makes its way to the Earth's surface. So the first thing is to have a little look at the Earth and what we know about it. This is actually in Hawaii, where you get these ground fractures and eruptions coming sourced from those. Imagine that. Imagine if that was your house there, and a couple of hundred meters behind you had this huge fountain of fire and liquid rock. It would make life feel quite tense, wouldn't it? And now we don't have anything like that here, but some people in the world do. And in fact, probably 10% or so of the world's population live within 100 kilometers or so of a volcano. And in fact, we're not threatened directly by things like this, but we certainly get effects from Iceland. So understanding the effect of eruptions on us and trying to make some kind of forecast of their activity is really the nitty-gritty of what volcanologists do. And Jenni leads a big, an international project which has been running for a few years now, hasn't it?
So as well as getting to teach our really brilliant students here at UEA, one of the things that we do a lot of research on is trying to understand how to make things a little bit better for people who have to live alongside volcanic activity. So both Richard and I do a lot of research, and that's what we wanted to share with you today. Not only how we understand volcanoes and what they look like, but a little bit about how we go about doing our research as well.
So we're going to have a look at some of these things, but the first thing is, how do we get magma coming out of the Earth? Well, there's a lot of big questions about the Earth, and over the last sort of 100 years or so, these have really exercised sort of clever people, and we now have a pretty good idea about the Earth, just how big it is, how hot it is, what it's made of. Now, those are really simple questions to ask, but actually very difficult to answer. So some superstar geophysicists over the last sort of, few 100 years or so have been thinking about these things. How big is the Earth? Does anyone know how big the Earth is across? How far is it from the surface of the Earth here to its center? Sorry? 28,000. That's a bit on the high side, but it's that order. It's, yeah? A bit more. In between. It's about just over 6,000 kilometers from the surface here where we are. We're sitting at about 15, 20 centigrade, something like that, maybe not today. But down below us, it's 6,300 kilometers to the center of the Earth. And that, if you think the distance from here to Cambridge, if anyone goes there, that's about 100 kilometers away. So if you imagine going to Cambridge and back again, back again, and back again, you'd have to go there and back 30-odd times to get to the center of the Earth. It's an incredible distance. It's a very, very big planet, and it's incredibly hot. Does anyone know about the temperature? Anything about the center of the Earth, the temperature? 30 degrees for somewhere on the surface of the Earth. Yeah, that would be a pretty hot day for us, wouldn't it? Sorry? 46?
I've got an idea, Ricky. Have you all got your red and green panels? Right. I've got a question for you about how hot inside the Earth is. Do you think it's hotter than an oven when you're roasting your Christmas turkey? If you think yes, hold up your green card. If you think no, hold up your red card.
There's a lot of green cards, isn't it?
Okay, here's another one then. Do you think inside the Earth is hotter than the temperature it takes to melt iron? Yes.
Wow.
So is anyone going to give us a number? Does anyone feel like telling us a number that they think it might be right inside the Earth? Yes? What do you think? 600 degrees. Okay, Ricky, what is the temperature?
Okay,
Pretty good.
Cut to the chase. 5,500. And that is mind-bogglingly hot. You probably cook your turkey, it's 150, 200. I'm not a turkey specialist, but 5,500 centigrade. That's the temperature of the surface of the sun. And a consequence of that is that because it's so hot inside, that heat is very gradually making its way out of the Earth. And the properties of the rocks get a tiny, tiny bit soft as you go deeper, as you go down into the Earth. So we live on this outer part of the Earth here, where a nice, comfortable temperature for us. The rocks are hard, they're brittle, but as you go down into the Earth, they become a tiny, tiny bit soft. And in fact, as you go to this part of the Earth, you've got a liquid, you've got an ocean of molten metal. So it's very hot and very big. And a consequence of that heat, and that heat coming out of the Earth, is that you can get certain special points in the Earth where rocks actually melt. Now, how do they melt? Well, it's a consequence that we have this sort of broken shell of the Earth, these things that we call tectonic plates. Now, Dr. Tom, before, he went back 150 years into the Victorian times. If we go back 80 million years, this is where India was. It's not stuck onto the landmass that it is now. It's separated. And India went crashing northwards, smacking into the Eurasian plate and pushing up a great belt of mountains. This is seeing 80 million years of Earth history compressed into a few seconds. And you can do that squeezing and push up a great mountains, the Himalayas, 5 miles above sea level. You can tear these plates apart in just the same way. So here's Africa, what will become Africa and South America being ripped apart. And again, we're talking about tens of millions of years here. So the Earth overall is broken up. The shell of the Earth is broken up into these plates. So we've got a map here of the Earth, and we're right there. And all these plates are delineated by the black lines, and the red dots are interesting, aren't they?
Wait a minute. I think I can see a pattern. Let's see if you can spot that pattern too. So the red dots are volcanoes, aren't they, Ricky? So one of the reasons we're quite safe here in Norwich, you can see we're quite far away from our nearest red dot. So the brown things are the continents, and the black lines are the edges of these tectonic plates. I think I can see a pattern in the volcanoes. Can you give me a green card if you can think you see the volcanoes making lines with the edges of the plate? And a red card if you think the volcanoes are just all over the surface of the Earth. Okay, so most of you think it's a green line because the volcanoes line up with the edges of the plate. Have you got anything to explain that, Ricky?
That's very nice. Yeah, there's quite a strong pattern there, isn't there? With all these, look all around the Pacific here, all these red dots are scattered along the margins of the plates. There are a few oddballs scattered around, but most of the volcanoes are at the edges of the plates. And that's really interesting because it's not just heat that's coming out of the Earth, it's how that heat is released. And if we think about how heat moves around, hot things are lighter than their surroundings. So a hot air balloon, the heat, it lifts the balloon, and it's the same inside the Earth. Some parts are a bit hotter and can rise. And so we've got this internal motion of the Earth, and it drags these plates around. They move as a response to that, and we have oceans opening, mountains being built, one plate here plunging under another. And when we have these effects in here, we can get melting of the rocks to generate magma. And if we, you can have melting in different environments. Here we've got another plate plunging under another. And this, as this plate dives down, it's heated up, it releases gases, and we get magma generated as this plate comes down here, which ultimately makes its way to the surface, or makes its way upwards, and it may erupt as a volcano. But it may get stuck somewhere in the crust and hang out for a while. And then there's various things that can happen. Most magmas spend many thousands of years making their way to the surface. And if we look at what happens to them, they get stored there. They may get pressurized and start to expand. And look at what happens to the ground. The ground lifts up and swells, but then what's going to happen? Is it going to erupt? Is it going to get stuck there? Or it may burst out of the side of the volcano. So what do we do about finding...
So I've made a jelly volcano, Ricky.
A jelly volcano? I thought volcanoes were made of rocks.
Well, do you remember you said that things are a little bit soft? But I think this is one of the things that we actually use when we're trying to understand what's going on underneath the Earth, because we can't go down there in a big, giant magma submarine. So we use things that are kind of like what we think might be going on. We call them analog experiments, and I've got this fantastic jelly volcano here. And I think I'm going to, so you told me that we need pressure, we need magma that wants to come upwards, and then we might make an eruption. And I'd quite like to try and make an eruption. I think I need some volunteers to help me out with this. Right, now, I had an idea just before the interval. Do you know what? It's a little bit rubbish having it's fantastic having your birthday very close to Christmas. I wonder, is there any people who've got their birthdays between now and Christmas or on Christmas Day who might like to volunteer? Oh, there's a hand up right at the back. Can you come down? And then I think, who just wants to volunteer for the hay of it? 2 hands, lots of enthusiasm. How about you? Oh, that's lots of that's noted. Noted the enthusiasm. Right.
It was my birthday a few days ago.
It was your birthday a few days ago. That is fantastic. Okay, we'll have 3 people. Now, geologists are very good trained observers. So one of the things we have to do is we have to watch out. Now, I have to say, are your mum and dads okay with slight levels of messiness? Not extreme? Not extreme for this one. Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to watch as I inject my magma into the volcano. And I've got some magma that I made here earlier. And I'm going to go down. And then I think what I'd like you to do is be the audience's observer, because you're really close to this jelly and it's not quite as clear as we'd like. So what we would like is to put some in. Right, let's get this going. Whoops. Sorry. Okay, so shall we put this one? I'm going to put this one through this hole, and I'm going to start injecting now. And I'd like you to describe what you can see as I get this injected into the jelly. Here we go. It's quite stiff. Can you see anything coming into the jelly?
It's like, yeah. Yeah, I can.
I might need to get Ricky to help me.
I'll try and...
Just about see some green going in?
Yeah.
Here's it coming.
Yeah.
I think that jelly's a little bit stiff. Can you see it coming through?
Yeah, just about.
So a big thing in experiments is you never quite know what's going to happen. I mean, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And sometimes when they work, you don't know how they'll...
It's coming through, isn't it? Are we getting it there?
Yeah, that's it.
Can you see it? Is it moving? Now, what sort of shape has it got? Can you see?
It's got like the shape of the tail plane you find on like jumbo jets. It's got kind of like the shape of a tail plane.
Yeah, so it's really thin, isn't it? And it's kind of moving. Is it moving out now? Is it moving out towards the side or up towards the top at the moment?
I think it's moving. That's definitely moving.
I think what I want to do is add a little bit of water to this.
So if it moves to the side, and erupts on the flanks of a volcano, imagine if your house or farm or village was on the flank of the volcano there. You'd probably prefer it to erupt somewhere near the summit. So you want to try and figure out where is the most likely place at any time that as an eruption will occur. Because if it threatens your village, you'll get very
let's give it another
upset.
shot.
Now, at the moment, the magma's stuck in the volcano, so there's probably a lot of earthquakes and shaking and gas being released.
Water makes it. It's not
Oh, here we go, here we go, here we go. It's erupting out the side.
Should we turn that round
There
so
we go.
everyone can see?
that green stuff is coming out. It's coming out.
Can you see there the lava coming out the side of the volcano? So it finally managed to erupt. I think that glucose got a bit sticky overnight. But can you see, can you do a top view for people so they can see this fantastic dike that comes through here? And that's the magma. It's really hard to see. Fantastic. Right, I think you guys did a great job under slightly difficult circumstances there.
Big round of applause.
Big round of applause. Fantastic.
So
One of the things I want to ask you about, though, Ricky, is can you see that the jelly, even though we thought it was wobbly, when the magma came out, it came out in this great big tear here, which I'm going to make even bigger with my finger.
So it's
What's that?
It's torn the jelly, it's cracked it. So when magmas move around, when they're getting close to the surface, they break the rocks. There's a lot of fracturing of the rocks, and we get earthquakes from that. And for us, that's a telltale sign that things are getting really quite sort of nasty on a volcano when there's a lot of earthquakes. Now, this is a swarm of earthquakes. The volcanic earthquakes from Montserrat, and it gets quite loud. But what we've done with these is put this earthquake series, we've had to speed it up a little bit because they're quite low, what we call low frequency sounds, very deep. But it allows you to listen to the literally listen to the heartbeat of a volcano leading up to an eruption. Got the sound there? Yeah. So this is how the ground shakes on here, and this is loud, is squeaky noises, quite high frequency, and that's deeper noises there. So all of those are discrete earthquakes associated with magma moving around and making its way to the surface. So let's switch technology. We're back there again. Now, so Jenni has just had the eruption. The magma's made its way to the surface. It's broken out through that fracture, and there's radically different things that can happen when the magma gets to the surface. Now, here are two clips of activity from people who do beautiful filming on Hawaii and such places. And I'd like you to have a look at these two types of activity and tell us what the differences are between them. This one on the top here and this one here. And there's one really big difference between them. The one on the top is, that's brilliant. That is a top observation. The top one here, you can see the material, the magma that's made its way to the top, it's spreading out over the ground surface. It's like you've got some syrup and tipped it out over the ground and it's spreading everywhere. What about this bottom one? Sorry? It's erupting, but it's shooting up from the ground, isn't it? Yeah? So all the bits in the bottom one here, they're being thrown up out of the volcano, dropping down on the ground. The top one here the pieces of the material is flowing out over the ground surface. So broadly speaking, we can split these into two. We call the top ones, where they're flowing over the surface, lava flows. They produce a nice flow of material that spreads out over the ground. Very dangerous. This is all hot, liquid rock. And the bottom one is explosions, gas-powered. Yeah, and gas, as you'll find out, is a really big deal for us. Now let's have a look at some lava flows first of all. This is a lava flow on Hawaii. Tremendous fun. If you're out in Hawaii, you can go and see these things up close and personal, and we can poke around and do experiments and measurements on them. And there are times when they can be very dangerous, but this is quite a small lava flow. Here's another on Hawaii. It looks very different from the previous one, and there's a few reasons behind that. And to say about the danger of these things, this is, as you can see, is a hole with some bones in it. Does anyone want to sort of hazard a guess what those bones might be and what you can say?
You can be a good observer here, because what you can do is look at the shape of the hole. It gives you a little bit of a clue. I think some people have guessed already.
Yes? Okay, someone or something. Yeah, let's have, yes? An animal or something. Can anyone tell from the shape? Let's have a little look at what we can see. Yeah, look, there's some ferns inside it, and you know how big ferns are, like this. Yeah, there's a shape up here and here. Does anyone want to? Yeah, the girl in there. Sorry? There's a big thing poking out the front here, big hole in the... Oh, Jenny's doing an impersonation. Yes, an elephant, yeah.
Yay, well done.
This is a lava flow in Africa, obviously, and it is an unfortunate elephant who got engulfed in the lava flow and was caught in it and obviously perished. And you can see his bones inside, the trunk, the front leg here, and so on. So there are acute dangers with these things. Now, for us, we can tell what's going on, and we take steps to avoid lava flows. We can get people and stuff out of the way. Obviously, moving a house is a bit more, or your property is a bit more difficult. And this is a lava flow in Hawaii, and the gallant firefighters come here and try to ensure that properties don't burn. But in many ways, you fight a losing battle. So if you look at this over the next 30 minutes, this house was gradually caught on fire, and another hour or so later, boom, it was burnt down. And now a lot of this area is covered by lava flows. So understanding where lavas are going to go is kind of super important, where they're going to go and what they're going to do.
Yeah, and we've got another experiment which shows you some of the things that we do. We don't quite use this stuff, but it's quite good fun. It's a bit like lava. So obviously, because we can't run around making experiments with lava flows themselves, we try to use something that's very close to it. And this is something called flubber. And I've got some I'm very grateful at the moment that I've made earlier, but I thought it might be really good fun for us to make some flubber too and decide what we think we want our experiment to look like. So do I have any volunteers to come and help me make some flubber? That hand with the reindeer horns went shooting up very fast. Do you want to come down? The white jumper with the reindeer? And someone from over this side. 2 hands are up right at the back there. Can you come down with the stripy jumper? Stripy sleeves on your jumper? No, just there, right at the back. That's it. You've got your hands up. No, don't turn around. Face me. Hands up. You. Yes. Come on down. Fantastic. Now, this is going to get slightly messy. I will only involve you marginally in this, and you've got such a beautiful jumper on. Do you think you can help pop some pinnies on for this? Hello. So, we can make flubber using these ingredients I have here. And first of all, the first part, you can do this at home if you like. And I think they do this at the nursery quite a lot. Have you made this at home?
I love it.
You love it. Fantastic. So I've got some important choices for you to make in a minute. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dilute the glue a little bit.
Mum doesn't love it.
Mum doesn't love it. Okay. Right, I'm going to dilute the glue a little bit. And what I want you to do, so what I've got here is I've got some blue stuff with purple glitter in it. And I think what I want to do is change the colour of this. So I've got some choice here. I've got yellow, red, blue, or green. And you can ask the audience, phone a friend, make a choice, but you let me know what dye you want and then add it in now while I mix this up a bit. What colour would you like?
Don't mind.
What colour, guys? They're saying red.
I'm not sure that was loud enough. But
That wasn't right. What colour was it you wanted? Okay. Can you add that in? Right, add as much as you would like. Bearing in mind that if you don't add enough, it will be pink. Oh.
Just keep going.
Keep going. Yeah, the whole bottle's going in. Good stuff. Oh, yes, this is very festive looking. Okay, right. So, glitter choices. Red, green, purple. What do you think? You don't know? Whoa!
Green.
I'm not sure.
Green.
Green. Go on then. There we go. Yeah, that's perfect.
Put loads.
Put loads in.
Loads.
More.
Keep going.
Perfect. Right, all of it. Bit more. I've been told off for this because it sinks to the bottom if you put too much in. Right, so now we've got a special thing. So this is kind of good, but it's not quite what these lava flows were looking like in Ricky's pictures, is it? So we've got to add another ingredient, and I've got to do the mixing for this, but you guys can help me when I start taking this out. Now, when we rehearse this, borax. Good science knowledge there. Right, we're going to add this in. And then with a bit of luck, we're going to make ourselves a lava flow. Here we go. Yes, here it comes. Here it comes. Right, now I'm going to put my hands in. Don't you do this. It's mixing. Here it comes.
Ooh.
So this is all just to show you. So when we've got lava flows, the types that Ricky was showing you there are really quite messy. Right. I think we're going to have to try and squeeze that a little bit to see if we can get it to turn itself into a flow. And if not, we'll use our emergency one. Here we go. Let's see. I have to say, it's not worked out. Our colour choices haven't worked out for us either, have they? So we've got this stuff. There it goes. There it goes. Now, we'll start with this one as a mini lava flow. There we go. Can you see how sticky material is when it flows? But we can learn really interesting things about how stuff flows. How confident do you guys feel about pouring glitter lines for me? Quite confident, yeah? So I'm going to go over here. This is my pretend house. I'm going to hold it back for a minute. Can you come over here with the glitter? And can you pour a line on this for me? Along there like this. It's really determined to float. No, onto here like this. There we go. We pour some straight lines like that. We'll do another one in a minute. Now, if all of this was moving at the same speed, then what you would see was those lines would stay, I wouldn't touch that anymore, I've made it yucky. All those lines would stay straight. Can you see that the lava is not all moving at the same speed? Because the lines are changing their shape, and that's because different parts of the lava flow are moving at different speeds. Our lava flow looks quite nice, doesn't it? It's quite festive. Shall we try with the bigger blue one?
Yes.
Yes, right, let's take this one off.
Oh my god, it feels amazing.
You don't need to, you don't need to touch it if you don't want to. Can I just, can I have that tray, Marisa, to put it onto? That tray. Right, have you got the idea with the lines now, you two? Why don't you pick up a second lot of glitter? There's the purple and the red. There we go. And let's see if we can get everyone to agree that this looks quite like how the lava flows, and it would help us understand something about how it works. That's a lot. Let's put it here. You ready? Oh. That's fantastic. Are you ready to draw lines? Because I'm going to have to hold it still for a bit. It's quite a tricky experiment to do. If we were doing this in the lab, we'd have to think of some modifications, wouldn't we, to try and make it easier for us. Right, here we go. Can you draw some lines on it? Straight lines? Quick sticks? That's it. Perfect. And another one? Ideal. Lots of glitter involved there. Let's do another one. And let's do another one here. Okay, there we go again. Let's try another one. There we go. Let's do a little one. You do some lines there and there. Perfect. 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 Can you see how as they're moving down, they're stretching out, and it's moving much faster here. And then look, we've made a second lava flow come. Can you see how they're interfering with one another? And all of these things are things that we have to think about when we're trying to predict where lava flows are going to go. But do you know what? This type of lava is one of the runniest types of lava, and Ricky's got a really sticky lava.
Very, very much so.
Thank
Understanding
you very
what
much.
these lavas do, how they behave. Understanding what they'll do and where they'll go is really the name of the game. And there's ways of doing this in more sort of controlled ways, and computer people can make a map of the ground and solve equations to figure out where the flows will go and how quickly they'll get there, how far they'll go and how quickly, because that affects how, whether people need to evacuate and move from them. But there's another kind of lava. It's rather like cooking, where in your kitchen you can make a lemon cake or a chocolate cake, or all being well, a bit of Christmas cake in a couple of weeks' time. You can put different ingredients into it and get a different cake. You still shove it in the oven and cook it up, but different ingredients give you a different cake. Well, it's the same with rocks, and there's different things that you can have in your magma, and that affects how they behave. And what we're looking at first on Hawaii was really very runny lavas that make these spectacular flows. The thing Jenni had there is obviously a lot more gooey than water, but it was flowing quite quickly. But up here is a picture of, it's still a lava, but it's called a lava dome. It doesn't flow away and make spectacular red rivers like you see on Hawaii or Iceland or something. It just builds up around the vent of the volcano, and it builds and builds and builds, and it forms a new mountain. Well, that's great. You say, well, you look at that, and okay, it's a bit grey and so not very exciting. Look at the same place at night time, and you can see it's very, very hot. You're just not seeing all that incandescence at the daytime. And the other thing with this kind of mountain is it's not just that's a static picture, but if you look at it through time, this mountain grows. And that is super weird. You don't expect to go to the Lake District or Snowdonia or something and, there's a new mountain which has formed somewhere. You expect the mountains to stay there. Well, this is a mountain that grows. Now, it's a little bit flickery the next time. So this next sequence is a time lapse over a year and a half, and it shows how this lava dome grows. So if you go funny with flashing lights or something, you may want to close your eyes, but it's not a big deal. But look at what's happening. The lava dome here is growing on this side. Now it's come to this side. Now it's spreading. Now that's great, isn't it? We've got a new mountain. There's no rivers of red which are burying houses or killing elephants or anything. New mountain at the end of it, and presumably it'll green over and grow grass. And hey, what happened then? Did anyone? There was a mountain there before, wasn't there? I wasn't imagining it.
A minute ago, yeah.
Yeah. There was a mountain there, wasn't there? Yeah. Isn't that strange? So look at this again. We go here, this mountain grows, bang, and then it collapses. And this is the nasty side of these lava domes, that you think all the lava's in one place building up like this, but they have the hidden side of them is that these mountains collapse and they fail, and great chunks of these lava domes can collapse. And it generates one of the most severe volcanic hazards. So this is what happened on Montserrat. We have this sort of dome growth followed by collapse before and after of that lava dome. And we'll have a look at the size of that in a moment. But how does it happen? Well, this is actually a video from a very similar volcano to Montserrat, and a close-up to start with of the lava dome. And, oh, sorry. Oh. And it shows chunks of rock that fail from the lava dome, and they cascade down the sides of the volcano as a mixture of rock and pulverized rock, ash, and gas. And they generate these hot rock avalanches. And it's like you getting vast amount of sugar or sand or gravel, chucking it down, and it actually behaves as a fluid. Although there's no liquid in there, it behaves as a fluid. It's called a pyroclastic flow, and these guys obviously know that it's something to get away from. Now those people were perfectly safe. They got out, and in fact, in a moment, you'll see that this flow runs out and it starts lofting and the cloud goes away. But that guy running and the van there, you'd think that's, although you're not meant to pick up strangers and stuff like that, that's really a time when, it'd be a nice thing to do to stop and give the guy a lift, wouldn't it? So if ever you're driving away from a pyroclastic flow and you see someone else running, let them in. They move very, very quickly. The top speeds of these things can be 100 meters per second, and you think of Usain Bolt and the sprinters, top speed is kind of 10 meters per second for them, so they move super quickly.
I think those people in the picture did get away in the end, though, just so you know.
Yeah, they did. In fact, you see this flow ran out there and stopped, and they came down the road here. But pyroclastic flows are dangerous. Now, I showed you this big hole in here. Now, we can do a few measurements to figure out how big that hole is and what sort of volume of material it is. 210 million cubic meters. Now, your fridge in the house is probably cubic meter, that sort of size. Yeah, that's an awful lot of fridges, isn't it? It's a huge, huge volume of material. Now, to give you a feel of what that means, we all know Norwich. This is looking at a map of Norwich. We're up here at the university, the football ground. If you were to take that 210 million cubic meters, spread it out over Norwich, you could cover the whole town. There is no danger of this happening. We're not going to have a pyroclastic flow eruption over Norwich. Don't worry. We wouldn't just cover Norwich. You would bury it to about 4 meters deep. And you imagine the whole of the city and the area under 4 meters, that's sort of, more than double our height. It's a huge pile of material. Now, on places that do have these kind of eruptions, this is Montserrat, you don't get a uniform 4 meters. The flows come down the valleys, they fill in valleys, they build up the topography, and they also build out into the sea. So you get new land as the island grows. And that's how volcanic islands, Montserrat, Hawaii, or Galapagos, that's how these places grow through time. A few other things. This is a little video of a pyroclastic flow right towards the end of its activity. And I hope it brings home the importance of knowing what these flows are going to do and why you should evacuate people and move them out of dangerous areas. You can see the flows in this valley here just billowing up. A house in there that's been hit and caught on fire. All this fine white material, that's all hot volcanic ash. Another house on fire. Incredibly violent and destructive events that move very quickly and can travel many kilometers from a volcano. So they're a very, very big deal. Here's another pyroclastic flow, and you can see it approaching the sea here at the coast of Montserrat. So just spreading out over these rather younger, over these older deposits, a new flow on top, and it's made its way to the sea there, and the flows can travel out over the sea surface. And if you see these at night, you see a huge incandescent horseshoe that spreads out over the sea surface. So don't think just because you're on, you're out on the water that you're safe. If you're out in your fishing boat or something, the pyroclastic flows can spread over the sea surface. So they're an incredible acute danger. See all the hot rocks and ash in here, which are heating up the seawater and causing these little explosions. Very, very dramatic stuff. This is what's happened on Montserrat. This is its capital town, which is hit by... Yeah, can I... Oh, I thought you wanted to ask. This is its capital town, which is a beautiful little Caribbean town prior to the eruption. This is after pyroclastic flows had hit it, filled in the river valley here. A detail of what goes on in the town. You can see pyroclastic flows that have traveled through. They haven't wiped all the buildings away, but they've obviously burnt them out and knocked out various walls and so on. Incredibly destructive events. Here's another very large event on Montserrat. Montserrat's old airport is underneath here. There's a 2-kilometer runway under there. Yeah, terminal buildings, all the stuff. It'd be about here, and there's no trace of it now. So they really do. They really do sort of affect places quite dramatically. Now, the other style of eruption that we've talked about, we've had a look at lava flows and lava domes. The other was volcanic explosions, where material is thrown up in the air. We're going to do a few things looking at volcanic explosions, and the name of the game in these is gas and gas bubbles. And gas bubbles are super important to us, and they're all around us all the time in the foods we eat. This is a crunchy bar, and you can see the bubbles in here, bread. I'm sure some of your parents drink beer, not myself, obviously, but you see these bubbles. And we get very excited by gas bubbles. And these are gas bubbles in a rock. Now, this is under a fancy microscope. This little bar at the bottom here, that's about the thickness of a penny coin. So we're really zoomed in to, this is a piece of pumice here with all sorts of gas bubbles. And that's a record of gas coming out of a magma and doing all sorts of funky things. And we sort of wonder quite a lot about gas and what it does. So I think you've got some treats lined up about
Yes, I do. Do you have time for just one more experiment? Yes? Does MD feel like volunteering to come and have a look? Oh my goodness, it's getting so hard to pick. You choose some volunteers, Ricky. I think I'd like 3, please.
3.
Someone who feels really strong, and then 2 quite tall volunteers.
Okay, so you and the red top.
Red top?
Yeah. The red arms? Yeah.
Yes. You come down.
The girl around the side there, do you want to? Yeah.
Perfect. And then I think someone right from the back. What about those 2 tall arms right at the back there? Now, so the first thing is, Ricky showed you that really fantastic picture of the inside of a volcanic rock. And I've actually got a volcanic rock here. So who of you is feeling kind of strong? You're looking strong to me. Right. So what I want you to do, this is a really huge rock. Do you think you can pick it up for me? Oh, look at that! Wow! And that's because this rock has got so many holes left behind it from all the gas. So we thought, to be fair, we're not giving much publicity to other kinds of rocks. So Ricky's kindly foraged out a limestone for us here. Could you see if you could lift that one, please? No. Yeah, good try. It's got some nice fossils in it, though, hasn't it? So the big difference that this makes it really, really light. And do you remember we were saying light things go upwards? So I think what we want to do is have a little bit of a look at what goes on with gas. So I wonder if you could come back here for me. I'm going to come towards the side. You stand there. Thank you. Right. Do you want to hold these for us? So we've got 2 experiments, and I think we're going to move relatively quickly through this. I've got one experiment here where we're going to show what happens nicely when gas usually comes out nice and gently from a volcano. So could you maybe put one of these in there for me, just to show that? Right, so, I've forgotten my magma colouring. Here we go, let's put some colouring in just to make it all a bit more volcano-y. Can you see there, if Marisa just moves her fingers a little bit, can you see that you can see all that gas coming out, mixing with the water, and then we've got a mixture of water and gas going up. It's coming up to the top, the gas is coming out, it's bursting, and then it's falling back down again. And when it comes back down, it's a much darker red because it's just all water. So that gas is getting out nice and gently. So that's kind of what might go on with the lava flow. Do we think that experiment was exciting? Could you give me a red card if you feel that wasn't good enough?
That's a lot of red.
Whoa, you guys. So they said to me, no explosions. Jenni and Ricky, no explosions. Yeah. So we'll try our best without an explosion at the moment. So what do you think? Could you give me a green card if you think what we need to do is add more gas to our experiment to make it? Yeah, they're saying more gas, guys. Can you see this huge pile of tablets which supply the gas? What I'd like you to do is I'd like all three of you to get those as quickly as you can and add them and then stand back so everyone can see what's happened. That's it. Quick sticks, that's it. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Right. Oh, die. Bit late. Add it into the mix. So you can see here that gas is degassing very violently. And can you see this time, rather than this lovely, gentle lava lamp, what we've got here is we've got this violent bubbling. And what's happening is we're starting to make a column. And we might actually manage to get that column to erupt at the surface. We'll see what happens. But you can see in here, I think the camera, shall we try with the other, there's another light to shine through it. You can see here, we've got all sorts of fizzing and fuzzing going on, and it's making its way up towards the top surface. Good? Why not? So what you can see is that basically we're producing material right up here that looks very much like this. And what happens in an explosion is eventually that magma, because it has that capacity to crack as well, blows apart, and then makes itself a volcanic explosion. So that was pretty good and a little bit more exciting than the other one. So give everyone a round of applause. Thank you. You can sit that down now. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit disappointed about no explosion, but we'll maybe come back to that later.
We'll try and, yeah. So all that bubbling going on, all that froth on the top of the tube there, that's the same as our rock. The rock's froth as the gas comes out. And what happens in a magma when that occurs is it occurs very, very dramatically. And let's have a look at this one magma which is exploding. This is in Iceland, where you get these spectacular fountains. And these fountains are, can be a couple of 100 meters, can be 500 meters or so high. Not going tremendously high, but all the material shoots up in the air, gas-powered, and collapses down and produces lava flows which flow out here. Oh, sorry. And produces lava flows. And at the same time, it builds up a cone of cinders. So explosions producing fragmented material. Now, another style of explosion, going to like the Montserrat lava dome, has a radically different way of behaving. Now watch this very carefully, and particularly this area around this volcanic vent here. There's a shock wave that goes through the discrete, and there you can see the big rocks flying through the air here. And you heard the rumble from that shock wave coming the sound of that coming a few seconds. Let's go from there again. So another style of volcanic explosion. Now these explosions can be, this is, big, but not enormous. Here's another at Montserrat, a little bit bigger, and you can see an explosion with pyroclastic flows at the side of it. Another volcanic explosion here, and these produce real hazards for us, because if any of you remember 6 years ago, there's a volcanic eruption in Iceland, And the problem with that is when you go on in aircraft, and aircraft don't like volcanic ash. It causes problems to the engine and the wings, causes damage to them. So it's really important to know where ash clouds are and what they're doing. And an even bigger explosion, this is from the Space Center, and you can see it puncturing through the clouds here. And these columns can go tens of kilometers up into the air. Now, this all seems quite depressing when you see all these things, houses burning and pyroclastic flows and explosions and so forth. The reality is that volcanic activity makes some of the most stunning scenery in the world, I think. The volcanic islands here, this is Montserrat. Hawaii, obviously, is a very popular place for people to go and visit, and that's a consequence of volcanic activities. So it's not all bad volcanoes. They do produce a lot of beautiful parts of the world. So I hope that gives you a little flavor of volcanic activity and how things behave and what we get up to.
Thank you. Wait a minute. I don't know about you, but I feel, you might not have the time now, but I feel a little bit disappointed about not making an actual volcanic explosion just to show you how they work. Would you like us to show you a big volcanic explosion outside? Okay, well, we're going to run off and get set up. And what was that? Like one that makes a bang and throw things out of a barrel? Would you like that? Okay. Well, we'll have to do that outside. So Ricky and I are going to run and get things set up out there.
As you said, what we're really interested in at UEA is trying to do better at forecasting these things. We've done quite a few of these explosions now. I'm going to ask you to count down once we put it in the bin, because I think it will take about 10 seconds before it explodes. Just try and keep this away and move after they get it in. Take a little while. You can hear crackling. That's basically cooling the bottle down, getting a good amount in. So we're pressurising it and then using the energy associated with that sudden failure to create our explosion. And that's what happens in some volcanoes that I've heard. Right, so Ricky's going to put it in. I think it's going to go about 10, 9,